Hello, Geeks and Ghouls. Remember when I said that I'm not getting books because I'm full, and no, I'm not? Well,
I lied.
what happened in the previous 2 months is that a lot of the restrictions for for the social distancing have been lifted, so I was able to visit some bookstores. I was actually looking for 2 or 3 books in that period, and I found none of them. But I got some other books I wanted, and I also conducted. I found that there was a collector who has moved away from Greece, and he was back for holidays, and he wanted to unhaul some of the books he had in his parents' place. So I contacted him, and I got some books. So this unhaul is for 2 months or so, covers 2 months. So yes, I didn't get all those books in 1 week, or did I? The way I'll present this book haul to you is I'll split it into 3 categories. I'll start with the English books I got, then I will get into the translated books I've got, and finally, I'll show you all those Greek books I've got. And you might not care, but I know that some Greeks who will see these books will be like either squealing or cursing me for getting them, because they're called classics, So let's start. I got this one from Book Depository. I have ordered it. It's Michael Moorcock's Elric the Sleeping Sorceress. I'm doing a read of the 6 original Elric novels, and this was the only one I'm missing. You may have seen the reviews for the first 2 books in the series, and this one it's book number 4. It will be reviewed in October, I guess. So yeah, it's one of those modern editions. I know that there will be 3 hard, bulky collections of these books, so I'm planning to get them and have a cohesive series of Elric books, because what I have got is chaos. But yeah, it's got a lot of bonus material in here, including the novella The Eternal Champion. Wow, that's actually quite a lot. It used to be another book. So yeah, that's interesting. It's got The Eternal Champion. It's got the short story Earl Obeck of Malador, which I have in another edition too. The Sleeping Sorceress, or this, not the blood, whatever. It's got a lot of bonus material because the books are very slim. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. And also from used bookstores, I got those 2 books. I've got Road of the Patriarch by R.A. Salvatore. I used to read a lot of R.A. Salvatore when I was younger. Actually, I got into fantasy reading his books, his Drizzt novels. And this is book 3 of the Sellsword trilogy with Entreri and what's the other guy? Zarlaxle. And I've got book 2 also unread for years and years, and I was planning to read this year, so I said, well, I get this one, I'll read it, I'll finish the trilogy, and then probably I'll never read R.A. Salvatore again, because I'm sort of over it. It's a great introduction to fantasy, but after a while it's like, yeah, no. I also got Shadowland by Peter Straub, which it's about 2 boys trapped into exploring a dark fantasy world, I believe. It's I know it's similar to Talisman that Peter Straub co-wrote with Stephen King, and yeah, it was quite a good find actually. I like the cover; it's cool, and I'll read it sometime. I'm not sure when. The back on the cover is not that illuminating about what's going on with this book, so I cannot say, oh, it's that's like, no, I cannot. But I'm looking forward to it. I like Peter Straub. I think he's quite interesting, and I've got more books of his that I have yet to read, and I'm always skipping reading, so yeah, I'm not sure when I'll be able to read this one in the future. I also got Pierce Anthony's Isle of Woman, which I thought was part of his Zan novels, I believe, but no, it's another series, which is about primitive. I think it's about primitive people. It's the first in a long series of books. So whatever. I have yet to read Pierce Anthony, and I've got 3 or 4 of his books, but it was in his other series. I think it's the Zan books. This was not. I thought it was all play on the Isle of Man, but whatever. So yeah, and to finish with English books I gotten. I got 3 books of this collector guy. I got Dune Messiah, which I have read in a translated edition, and I want to have English text, and I also got Charterhouse Dune, which I have not yet read. I have read the first 3 Dune books. I've got Gothenburg of Dune, and this guy was missing Heretics of Dune for some reason. Probably it was moldy or in another box. But what I got from this guy too was Imagica by Clive Barker in this big hardcover first edition, which is unread, as you can see. And oh boy, this book is awesome, and I want to read it someday. And I'm really struggling to find where to put it in my bookshelves. As you can see, I have put some of these books in there and I have to take them out, so that's why it's messy behind me. Or you cannot say, because there's a lot of books already. Yes, the shelf behind my head has 3 rows of books. So, visiting used bookstores, I also found some translated books. I've got Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. I got Midnight by Dean Koontz. And these books are from the early 90s. This is how we read most of those best-selling thrillers back in the 90s in Greece, in these distinctive pocket editions. Well, Midnight maybe it's 1995. It's not that old. But yeah, they had this format back then with the logo, and they look good. You know about Silence of the Lambs, of course. It's the Hannibal Lecter book too. I've read The Red Dragon. I want to read this one. I was curious to see how different it is from the movie. And Midnight by Dean Koontz, I was actually looking for intensity, but I couldn't find it. But this one sounds good. It's about a small town with deaths happening, and there is an FBI agent trying to find out what's happening there. I think I've been spoiled about this, about what's happening in Moonlight Cove. So yeah, I mean, I was not a big Dean Koontz fan, but I've read some good books of him lately, like The Bad Place and Fandoms, and I want to read more of him. I've got Eyes of the Dragon too, and I'm looking for intensity. So that's what I get. I also got Gunga Earl by Gillian Flynn, which is from another publisher, actually. I was looking for this book in English for quite some time now, in a used bookstore, but I couldn't find it. I'm trying to avoid ordering books from abroad because they take way too long. So I just stumbled upon it, was really cheap, and I said, damn it, I'll get it. I'll get there with it. But I really like how Gillian Flynn writes in English. Her writing is very distinctive, so I'm missing out by reading this one. I know it will be a great thriller, like the other 2 books of hers I've read, The Dark Place and Sharp Objects. Yeah, I was looking forward to reading it in English, but it's not going to happen, so yes, I'll rather read it this way. I've also gotten this 4 Lee Child novels, and I'm not speaking too much about it, but I do like reading Lee Child novels as palate cleansers. This is Tripwire. I think it's Tripwire. Yes, Tripwire, book 3. It's actually the only book that has a continuity, and I've read the next one. Go figure. Then I got Without Fail. And you know what's bad with Greek publishers? Yes, they're the same guys who did these books, although they've changed their format. They changed the titles. I mean, Tripwire is translated as Little Trap, and Without Fail is translated as Announced Crime. I also got The Hard Road, which is actually translated as The Hard Road. Go figure, The Hard Way. And then I got Bad Luck and Trouble, also translated as Alarm Warning. Yeah, that's how we translate books. And you know what? They sound much more urgent and dramatic, and I have to go through some of the horror titles. I've learned how to write book titles from Greek mistranslations of thriller horror books. because they're very dramatic. I also got Zulu by Carl Ferry. He is a French thriller author who is also writing books about certain people in the developing world. I've also got his book Haka, which is about Oceania. I think that's Polynesia or New Zealand. This one's about Africa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to read his books. I've heard great things about it, and this was a gift from a friend. He was unholding the book, and I had found a book he wanted, so I said, give me this one, because he wanted to unhold this one, so I guess I'll read it. Now, from traditional bookstores, this is Justin Cronin's 12 and City of Mirrors. No, it's the other way around. It's 12 and the City of Mirrors, book 2 and 3 in the Passage trilogy. I had the first book and I found this one really cheap, so I said, let's get it and read them eventually. I also got this collection of Lefkadio Hearn's Japanese ghost stories. It's from a local publisher, it's full price, really great cover. Great edition, looking forward to read these ones. In case you don't know who Lefkadio Hearn is, he's an Irish-Greek guy who went to Japan and he wrote down a lot of the Japanese legends and Japanese ghost stories. And that's how, through his writings, a lot of the Western people learned about Japan. Speaking of mistranslations of books by Greek publishers, I got a V.C. Andrews book. It's the Dawn. It's called Dawn. I cannot recall the name of the series, but you see, Flowers in the Attic was a success too in the late 80s, early 90s when they were published here. So what the publisher did, they translated the entire series of, I cannot recall, the Cutlers, I think, as Flowers of something. This is translated as Flowers of Dawn instead of Dawn. And I think I had also have the third book in the series, Twilight, translated as Flowers of Twilight. I got tricked twice. Actually, I got tricked once, and then I realized I was missing this one because book 3 and I got this. So yes, it works. I was tricked. That's a good trick to publish your book. If you are trying to do a new series, make sure it sounds exactly like your successful series and people will buy it being tricked that it's a book they're missing. And now for the big finale, for the Greeks, who will recognize these 8 books. So back in the early 90s, up to mid-zeros, there was this anthology, this series of very slim paperback books, anthologies with short stories, and they fell down the memory lane in a way. They were after 2000, where we started to have some full publications of books. We had the books of Michael Moorcock translated and published, collected together with the Conan stories collected together in more traditional publications. These books fell down the memory hole in a while, and they lost some of their appeal. But it's a great artifact because it's hard to find. This one is called Stories. Everybody's called Stories from something, or of something, or with something. This was the format, and there were 77 of these books. I've got about 40 of them, I believe, or 50. And it's hard to find these ones, but I found 8 from this collector guy. And I know that he also threw away some moldy ones, which I know some people watching this from Greece are screaming, no! And they cost me. They cost me a pretty penny. I gave €8 per book for these books. And their original price was €5. That's book 74, and it was priced for €5. The others were priced way less. I mean, this one, number 29 in the series, was like €2. This one is called Stories from the Near Future, and it features Robert Zelazny and Theodore Sturgeon, Isaac Asimov, and Tanith Lee. I'm not sure for additional titles because it's hard to find them. It's like a possessed car, a disc full of loneliness, whatever. I cannot translate the titles. I'm very sorry for this. This one is Stories with Time Travels, and it's got Larry Niven, A Death in a Cage, and James Bliss, and a James Bliss story among others. There is also Frederick Brown, Wilmer Siras, Marley Leinster, Alfred Barrett. Now, if you know Greeks are interested in me going through those stories and talking about them, leave a comment below if you're interested in something like this obscurity. But this segment is mostly to flex on my Greek viewers. This is Stories with Alien Invaders 2, and it's got a Fritz Leiber, Robert Silverberg, and Robert Abernathy story, among others. Stories with cosmic distractions. As you can see, some of the later volumes are in mint condition, because this will tell you something about how the popularity of the series deteriorated as time went along. The first 16 or so are amazing collections, but after a while they lost some of their appeal. This one, Stories of Cosmic Catastrophes, has a George Wells story, an Edgar Allan Poe story, an Arthur Clarke story, a Ray Bradbury story, a Nathaniel Hawthorne story, a Theodore Sargent story. Yes, quite a few of them. Then we have Stories of Human Loneliness, and yeah, I mean this series used to have books like Stories of Blood and Passion, stories with monsters, stories from Nightmare Worlds, and now we got the Stories of Human Loneliness. That's emo AF, and it's also book 65. So yeah, that's like, I used to remember, I think this one is published around 2000. Yes, it was published in 2000, so I remember going to bookstores back in 2001, 2002, and seeing these books. I was like, what's that? That's archaic. They looked very cheap for that era. I mean, that's Gene Wolfe's Shadow of the Torture from 2004. So it was books like that for fantasy fans that were becoming available, and then we had books like that. So you can see that there's a difference here. This one has stories from Roger Zelazny, Ray Bradbury, and Franz Kafka. These two are stories from Weird Tales, and they have this composition of Weird Tales covers. They used the sequels for some of them, but they're like 66 and 69, so they're like, we had the stories left and couldn't find a theme for them, I guess. And I'm not saying this, to badmouth the editor of the series, which was actually doing great work throughout the series, but actually back in 2005, I remember him coming to an online community and say, do you think that this series is obsolete? And most people were like, yes, they are. I guess it's a hard lesson for how these things work. Some series are obsolete or become obsolete after a while, but there's some gems here. I mean, there's a Robert Howard story, a Clark Aston Smith story, a Harry Cotton story. You know what? I'm reading this. An Eric Frank Russell story. I don't know this guy, but I know this Philip Lovecraft guy. Yes, there were some iffy translations of names. Beyond the Wall of Sleep, it's here. And there's a Theodore Sargent story. Yeah. I want to read this one because it sounds cool. I mean, The Garden of Phantomfa, The Black Hound of Death, or something by Robert Howard. I'm just trying to come up with the title by reverse translating it. Yeah, that's definitely one I want to read because of Clark Aston and Robert Howard. And this one's got more Clark Aston Smith, The Mandragores, Robert Howard, A Witch Will Be Born. Conan got crucified for this book. I have to read it. The Other Gods by Howard Phillips Lovecraft. And there is also an Anthony Rand and Simbury Queen story. And finally, there is volume 74, Stories of Everyday Madness, and this one's got Louis Borges, James Gunn, I'm not sure who this guy is, Viktor Kodosky, Larry Niven, The Human Puzzle or something, Yeah, the next two volumes in this series were a collection of stories of Carsten Smith, which I've got somewhere back there behind this shelf, as well as the next one. Another one was a collection of stories by Lord Dunsany. I haven't gotten this one because I've got a lot of Lord Dunsany stories in a thick volume, somewhere above the Malazan books. You cannot see it for here because it's blurry. And the final one was, I cannot recall. But yes, it was like, you can see that I'm excited for Howard and Lovecraft, and the other ones are like, yeah, I can see why you people loving these stories were not that excited, of sort. So that was the wrap up, the book hauls I did in the past 2 or 3 months. I'm very excited for some of them. If you're excited for any of those books, leave a comment below. Thank you for watching.